If someone came up to you right now and asked you, name me three old titles of FPS games that you've been playing, chances are you're going to say something like Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, Battlefield, or something similar. And that's totally normal. This trio shaped the entire direction of modern gaming, whether it's CS 1.6 or CS Global Offensive, revolutionizing competitive gaming with esports and boosting a whole gaming platform by itself, Steam. Technically everyone knows about it. Call of Duty, with its titles Modern Warfare 1, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1 and 2, they introduced us to cinematic storytelling and unforgettable multiplayer experience. Shout out to lobbies of Black Ops 2. Listening to racial slurs was so funny. I wasn't the same at all. Or maybe Battlefield, with its massive maps or grounded gameplay, even real-world inspired war scenarios. These games left their mark on the gaming industry. But where are they right now? Yeah, technically everyone knows what happened to three of them, and technically everyone knows what happens to most of the shooter titles right now. Let's change it. Name me three old shooter mobile titles. Mobile gaming was taking a different path from PC and console gaming. Back then, shooter games were so rare. I remember titles like Nova, Death Trigger, and bunch of shooter spin-offs. Making all of these cutscenes and gameplay and story and fun like that was so amazing. I really wished that Gameloft continued on that path, but as you know, everything changed. If you look at those games, you'll notice something similar. Simple control mechanics. Well, yeah, of course, games and on in this area were played on smaller touchscreens, and that made developers come up with some original ideas to make their gameplay mechanics more easier so controls can be more easier too. So they designed it around intuitive and reactive gameplay and touch controls. That's why games like Subway Surfers, Jetpack Joyride, Dan the Man, or even Temple Run and other titles thrived. They were fast, fun, and didn't even require complex input. And honestly, that area was better on its way. Yes, the quality wasn't really the best, we admit it, but gameplay by itself made all of the game playable, and that's what made this area nice and unique in its way. And it stayed like that for a while. Few original games would come out now and then, with just a sprinkle of microtransactions. Yeah, it was a bit annoying, but it wasn't really unplayable. But by the year of 2017, mobile phones were getting bigger and more powerful. Not that much, but definitely better. And that's the gap needed by FPS developers to enter the competition. Around that time, 2017, 2018, and 16, Battle Royale games start getting a lot of traction. Games like PUBG laid the groundwork, and then came the original Fortnite, changed its own mechanics and gameplay and stories, and tested the water with Battle Royale. And it worked. Then other titles came. Apex Legends, based on the Titanfall universe, Warzone, based on the Modern Warfare 19 universe, and they were fun and nice, not gonna lie. And from there, even mobile developers jumped into the trend, maybe testing their luck. Who knows? And to their surprise, they were lucky, and most of the games got a massive hit. They became so popular and famous. Games like PUBG Mobile by Level Infinite, Free Fire by 111 Studio, and Pixel Gun 3D laid down some of the best early foundation of mobile shooters. Then came Tencent, ready to take a piece of the pie, and not a small one either. Then came Nereis too, bringing their own wave of shooters trying to grab a share of the growing hype. Alongside Tencent, they helped push mobile FPS genre even further to a full-blown market more than a trend. Games like Call of Duty Mobile showed us how serious mobile shooters were becoming, and in the same year Tencent came and published their title Cyber Hunter, pushing things even further. By then, mobile gaming was already taking half of the market, and after this wave, it started getting most of it. But remember when I said that microtransactions were a thing back then and they were a bit annoying? Yes, that was the thing that attracted most of those titles to go on mobile. It wasn't just about gameplay anymore, it was about skins, crates, battle passes, ads, and cash. At first, it was a cool concept, fresh, exciting, something new, something fun. You know that joke that you hear over and over to the point that you start getting sour? The same thing happened to it. There is no game in this day that doesn't have some type of paid progression or some form of battle pass, and some even sneak in underage gambling too. Even brand collabs, which used to be about fun and hype, now just feels like a new way to squeeze more money out of the player. The foundation of all of these mechanics was laid by Fortnite. When mobile games start pulling real money and Fortnite started getting a lot of cash and a lot of traction, PC and console titles couldn't ignore it anymore. And now look at, for an example, a modern Call of Duty title. You pay $60 for a game, then paying money for skins and battle passes and payable content that will add with the multiplayer subscription if you play on console. And that started being annoying. It's like most modern mobile shooters or even other games are now built over heavy engines like Unity, Unreal Engine 4, or even 5. These engines made games harder to run. If you look at analytics, you'll notice that most of mobile players come from countries like Pakistan, India, or Latin America. Why? The answer is simple. It's poverty, and these countries can't afford a gaming PC. And if they could, it would be an entry level. It won't let you play some newer titles, and that sucks. So, what's the solution? Playing on mobile. It was cheap, easy to carry, and easy to access, so it became the go to option for everyone who doesn't own a PC. So, let's get back to the point. Warzone Mobile, announced by Activision and Call of Duty Next, alongside Warzone 2, DMZ, and MW2. Since then, we haven't really heard about it so much. I mean, personally, I hear some leaks now and then, and all of the news go dark. And even cloaked access versions were not showing any good results. Why? The game was built on the IW9 engine, the standalone engine developed by Activision, originally meant for PC and consoles, used in MW2 and the first Warzone. But let's be real, phones won't never beat PCs. That's just a fact. Using that engine on mobile was like swapping Ford Fiesta's engine with a British V8. It won't fit, and if it does, it won't even perform that well. The result? An optimized game, bad experience, unload graphics, dark frames, heat, and bad gameplay experience. And especially on Android, the game became an iPhone exclusive. And I can explain that iPhones are limited in number, so optimizing the game for a certain amount of iPhones will be easier, while Android works on a big amount of systems and a lot of models, so optimizing it for only flagship phones was the only option, and it didn't work out too. I mean, we see gameplay from phones like Red Magic Ones or Samsung flagship mobiles or even iPads. Content creators sometimes struggle to run it on their phones or iPads.
Oh, I see a couple people here. Hello. I can't play anymore. I'm just gonna call it a day. I can't play. I literally can't. I don't know if it's the mode or if it's just my iPad, but I'm gonna call it a day there.
Sometimes struggle to run it on their phones or iPads so they can open a stream. I mean, we saw it so much times, and that's a problem. As I said, poor countries, poor people, poor devices, which made games like that inaccessible. So what's the point of attracting anyone else? Since if someone did have money to buy a Galaxy S23 or an iPhone 13, wouldn't it make sense for just to buy a gaming PC and play the original title instead? And speaking of sudden shutdowns, Apex Legends Mobile would be a perfect example for that. As I mentioned earlier, for your game to succeed, you need to attract players from the right regions. Apex Mobile didn't do that exactly. The original Apex Legends wasn't even popular on those regions to start with. Meanwhile, old school titles like FIFA, that changed to FC now, is more appealing for these places. I mean, I see people buy a whole console just to play the game. So bringing it to mobile is a smart move. It attracted exactly the right audience. Apex, on the other hand, appealed mostly for places like UK, US, and Canada. But here's the thing, those places, people can easily buy a PC or console. So why to play a downgraded version and play on your mobile and spend money on it while you can play the original title? That's why they shut it down. They claimed it didn't match our expectations, but in reality, it just didn't bring the money like their other titles did. That's why you mostly see companies like Tencent and NetEase pulling it off. They get it, they know what to do and what to target. They know how to make a game actually work for people who are going to play it. Games like Delta Force, which splits its own versions across different regions, for titles like Bloodstrike, Mobile Legends, Free Fire, PUBG Mobile, and COD Mobile. They nailed it. Optimized, early, simple to run, fun, accessible. Free Fire, for example, I don't even like the game personally, but let's be real. It was playable on a phone with 2 gigabytes of RAM and an SoC that looks like it came in from a bag of McDonald's. And it will still run. That's the point. These companies understand that performance and accessibility matter more than flashy graphics, especially when most of your players don't own a flagship phone. But even this has its own flaws. Big companies invading the space, pushing smaller and indie developers who never stood a chance against them, which honestly disappointing. It's what makes a genre feel repetitive and boring in the worst way possible. Like I said, solutions on these platforms are low and across gaming industry are limited, so limited. And as long as they keep making cash, no one is going to stop them. My voice is small, to be honest, and this video wasn't really something useful, I guess. It was me ranting about something useless, but if you enjoyed this video, I hope you really like it. Until the next time, see you later, stay safe.